hit record, and then we'll get going. If I can get it started. There we go. All right. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. Today, we're going to be going over leveraging your internship with Ashley. And Ashley is the Assistant Director of Student Athlete Development at Clemson University. But before she was there, she was a graduate student in our office. So I am happy to see her as well. But I'm going to go ahead, just for time's sake, because I know we're getting started a few minutes late, turn it over to Ashley so that she can share all of her knowledge. And if you guys have questions as you go through, please feel free, like always, to drop them into the chat, and we'll go from there. With that, I will pass it to Ashley.
Thank you, Alex. Hi, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Hope you're doing well. I'm excited to be here and talk about this topic with all of you. So I will share my slides and we'll kind of get started. Ooh. All right. Can everyone see my screen? Are you good? Yes? Okay, perfect. So hi again, my name is Ashley Persson, one of the assistant directors here in student athlete development at Clemson University. And like Alex said, today we're going to talk about leveraging your internship into a full-time position or in something where there's an opportunity available in that office. This is just a brief bio. This is me. So I'm the assistant director of student athlete development. I graduated from Cal State San Marcos.
Ashley,
yes, Alex.
It's not changing.
Oh, it didn't change. Oh, I see my face. You're not all seeing that? Okay. Can you see it now?
No.
Okay, everyone, please hold. We're gonna get there. We're gonna do this together.
We see Canva. I see.
Okay.
You're not in present mode, but you are. I can't see it now.
You can.
I can see Canva.
Oh, you don't see. Okay. 1 second, everyone. Give me just a second. I'll just download it real quick. It won't be as fun and move, but it'll be great. Okay. Well, that's a bummer, but it's okay. There's a solution. Okay.
See, transferable skills. You're adjusting and adapting.
Adjusting and adapting. We're gonna find a solution, everyone. Okay, this should work. Tried and true. Okay, can you see PowerPoint screen now?
I can see PowerPoint screen now.
Okay, you're gonna have to, I never use PowerPoint. There's a presentation button, it's down here. Okay, can you see this?
Yes, you are
beautiful. Good. We're back, everyone. We made it. Okay, can you see me now?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry about that. So like I said, I graduated from Cal State San Marcos, which is in San Diego, California, which is where I'm from. I received my bachelor's degree in political science and history. And then I ended up out here at Clemson to pursue my master's degree in student affairs. So like Alex mentioned, I worked as a graduate assistant in the Career Center, specifically in the UPIC department, which are the on-campus internships. And then I interned as part of my master's program over here in student athlete development, which is where I now work full-time. So leveraging your internship into a full-time position. This is something that in the course of the last year and a half was happening in my life. So I'm really excited to talk about that today. If you have questions, like Alex said, pop them in the chat. I have a time at the end if you do have questions sectioned out, but if something is urgent, feel free to also pop that in the chat. So this is just a description again of what Alex said the presentation would be today. We're going to talk about how we can establish credibility, ask questions, and leverage that internship opportunity into a full-time job opportunity. This is kind of what we're going to look at overall. So we're going to talk about the importance of asking questions, talk about being proactive, sharing ideas, and then I have some, I'm calling them hard hitters because I feel like they'll stick with you, but main takeaways. So if you leave with anything, those things are going to be the things I want you to remember. And then some built-in time for Q&A here at the end. So this is a statistic from NACE. So NACE is the National Association of Colleges and Employers. This was taken back in 2021. But according to NACE, the conversion rate for internships to full-time positions was 66.4% in 2021. And if you look at the trend from 2018 to 2021, it is an upward trend. I mean, we have a little bit right here. It flatlines a little, but then it goes back up. So this is important because what this tells us is that employers are looking for individuals to come in, serve in an internship, prove themselves, and transition into that company, right? It's easier on the company's end, transition-wise. The person in that role would have less of a transition period. They understand the culture of the company, probably a lot of day-to-day tasks in that role, which is a benefit for that company as well. So just keeping this in mind as we talk about this, it's a real thing. There is a conversion rate from internships into full-time positions. It does happen. And if it works out for an employer, it's mutually beneficial, right? So just wanted to throw that out there, keep that in mind. When I think about this topic, this is kind of what I think about. This is my main overarching idea where when I think about an internship turning into a job, I'm thinking about that internship as an ongoing interview. Every single day from the time you start that internship till the time you finish, whether there's a position available that would be a full-time role or there's not, you're in an interview. How you show up to work, if you're on time, how you interact in a group setting. Are you collaborating with others? Are you able to communicate, asking questions, right? Every interaction you have, people are taking note of those interactions and will remember those things about you should a position come available. Or if you've done well enough, I've had students who've come in who they've had jobs that were created for them because they proved that they were an asset to that department or that team, right? So just keeping this in mind, think of your internship as an ongoing interview. You're always being watched, you're always kind of being interviewed, whether it feels formal or not. This is something to keep in mind. And it's a good way, I think it's a good mindset to approach any type of internship or professional experience, right? So this is kind of one of my favorite things to think about when it comes to this topic. And then I want to talk about asking questions. So this is the first main part. But what asking questions in your internship does is it shows that you're engaged. You are curious about learning, right? You're intentional about being in the space and wanting to learn and better yourself professionally, to learn that content, to learn, that industry or that field. And it shows that you care and that you want to grow. You care about being curious and you want to grow. But I do talk about there's a balance here, right? So you want to have kind of a medium. You're asking questions because you want to learn the information and show that you're taking initiative, but you also want to be careful not to ask questions where the information has potentially already been given to you, or you could find the information on your own or talking to someone else that you work with or collaborate with, right? So a good rule of thumb is to look at least 3 places or talk to maybe someone on your team before going up to ask those questions, right? So whether that's looking on a website, looking through training that you've been given, anything like that, double checking those 3 things before you go and ask that question again, because what you want to make sure doesn't happen is that you ask a question where you could have had the answer, and then it shows like you didn't pay attention to enough detail to go and find that answer for yourself, if that's kind of making sense. So ask the questions, but also find the balance. If you're in a situation where if you don't ask this question, there's potential for you to make a larger mistake, ask the question. It's better to ask the question, but just be aware of that. Be checking those places, check other places first, and then ask that next question. And then being proactive. So being proactive is really important. You can do this with as much information as, depending on what information you have, there's different levels of how proactive you can be. Because as an intern, there's certain stuff you just won't know yet or have learned yet. That's part of your experience. Be proactive with the information that you do have, right? So over communicating. It's always better to over communicate than to under communicate, because then you're in the know, your supervisor's in the know, your team is in the know. If you get to the point where you're oversharing, we'll talk about some self-awareness and hopefully that team would let you know. But even if it's like, things happen, right? Maybe you're always on time and I'm supposed to be here at 9 and there's unexpected traffic or my coffee spills as I'm walking out the door. depending on what your relationship is with that supervisor, maybe I shoot my supervisor a quick text because that's our relationship. And I say, hey, on the way out the door, coffee spilled, be there shortly after 9, right? Because then what happens if my supervisor knows what's happening, but she walks by my office at 9:10 and I'm not in there, if I haven't communicated to them, then they're like, where's Ashley? She's not here today. If she knows, she's not going to think twice, right? And if that's not a habit and those things, you're not just perpetually showing up late, it's better to share that information, however appropriate in that relationship you've decided how you're going to communicate, right? Just over communicate. And then if there's space to do so, take initiative. So there is a learning curve as an intern, right? You come in, you might not know anything about the company, the department, so you're in that learning phase. But as soon as you kind of understand the people, the culture of the office, take initiative where you can, right? It shows that you're engaged. It shows that you have responsibility and you're willing to take on a task, take on something that maybe someone else isn't doing. If you have an idea, sharing those things, it just shows that you might be a step forward in terms of forward thinking, being prepared before things get to a point where you have to go back and do something afterwards. And then showing up, and I mean this quite physically, showing up to your internship, whatever that looks like, whether that's virtual, so you're online, or whether that's in person showing up. So physically being where you're supposed to be, when you're supposed to be, but also metaphorically, right? It's one thing for me to sit here and I showed up to work today, but did I show up here? Am I engaged? Am I active in my thinking process? Am I present where my feet are doing the work that I'm supposed to be? It goes a long way. And I think with those two things, having a good attitude and being on time are crucial to both of those things. If you're able to consistently show up on time, have a good perspective and attitude toward whatever you're working on and be engaged, that's going to go a long way if you do that consistently. Think about people you've worked with. When someone's reliable, right? They show up, you know, you can count on them. They bring good energy into the space appropriately, right? You know, there's a time and a place for everything. But always bringing a positive perspective to something. Those are people I want to work with. I want those people on my team. And when I think of teams or projects and things I've worked on, those are people who stick out to me. So I want to be like that as well, right? And then just being prepared. It might sound like maybe that might be a simple one, but really show up with what you need. Is that a laptop? Is that a notebook? Is that a pen? Even if they don't say you need anything, show up with something, right? Be prepared, take notes. I put down here, write things down. Be engaged, take notes, write things down. It might save you from having to remember something and go ask someone later. And then being available and responsive. So if someone needs something, be available, right? You're there, you're participating, you're an active member of the team, you want to learn. So be available if they need something, or if someone on your team needs a favor and you have the bandwidth to do it, hop in, do it. Be responsive. If you're online, if it's in your office, be in your office, be in the places you're supposed to be in, and respond quickly. I know if I, send an email or someone sends me something and they respond very quickly, I'm like, oh, they're on it. This person can communicate efficiently. They're getting back to me with information that I need. And then it helps me do my work more efficiently, right? Because I'm getting what I need. So being proactive in the space, take initiative where you can. Communication is key. So just keeping all of those things in mind. Okay. And then connecting and sharing ideas. So I wanted to name this networking, but I wanted to explain a little bit more about why I did connecting and sharing ideas. So we'll touch on the sharing ideas part first. And it has a little bit to do with that taking initiative piece. But when you're in an internship, and I often talk to my UPIC students about this who are student athletes who are doing UPIC internships on campus. You are a fresh perspective to that office. You've never been in there, right? You're meeting everyone for the first time. You are learning the material. You have a fresh perspective, and maybe that office, maybe it is newer, right? And maybe there are people who are wanting to revamp things, but maybe there are people in there who have been doing the same thing for 10, 15 years, and maybe it's worked really well, or maybe they're looking to kind of spice things up, right? You can bring that perspective, and you might have an idea where you're like, I'm afraid to share, maybe I shouldn't, but your voice is valuable as an intern. And that goes back to the initiative part. If you have an idea and you've thought through it, and there's a space after learning that culture of the office for you to speak up, and those things are valued, share ideas if you have them, right? So just kind of keeping that in mind and empowering yourself as an intern to not kind of shut down with, I feel like sometimes that term intern can indicate like a negative connotation, like, oh, they do just these tasks. And in certain roles, you do have to do some of that work at the base level to learn and understand to help you, gain knowledge in that field, but share your ideas when you can. And then the connecting part. So connecting and or networking, right? It's really important, I think, just as young professionals or professionals in general, when we think about networking, not just to make the connection and check a box that I've now talked to someone who works in the field of sales. And if anything ever comes up or I need a job, I'm just going to reach out and say, hey, we talked once and I connected. I'm looking for a job, right? Meet with them to learn about their role, learn about their experience in the department. What was your education background? How did you get here? What are things that you would tell a young professional looking to gain traction in this field to do right now? If you could go back 10 years, what would you do, right? We often call this informational interviewing, but if you're building those relationships with a genuine intention to build a relationship and care about that person, so it's mutually beneficial and you're both able to learn from one another, that's going to behoove you way more than if you just say, hey, Alex, we met. I know you work in career services. Cool. And then I hit up Alex later to say, I'm looking for a job, right? But if I am intentional about meeting with Alex, I care about where she's come from, I learn about her, and I use those things to help better myself and work together to move forward. That's what's going to help you build relationships with people in whatever industry you're in. People and relationships, that's what everything comes back to. I'll talk about it again later in this presentation, but I believe that wholeheartedly. So networking and connecting, be intentional about your networking, but the place of work that you work in as an intern, I tell students sometimes too, maybe you're interning and you thought you'd want to do a job that your supervisor was doing, but maybe there's another team in the office and someone else on that team is doing something and you didn't even know that existed because you're an intern and you're interning for the first time, right? And you're like, oh my goodness, I actually love what she does over there. So doing your work as an intern, but branching out to build those relationships and learn about other opportunities while you're in there. Take advantage of those opportunities. Do your work and do what's expected of you, right? But then when you do those things, also build in that time to build those relationships, because that's also just as beneficial, right? Is building relationships in the place that you work. So connect and share ideas. Connecting and sharing is really important. Now, this is specific if there is a position available or if you're interested in a full-time role in that office, and those conversations are starting to happen, because quite frankly, it can start to become weird or awkward, and you're in this internship and some people know you're looking for a job, others might not, and you're excited about the opportunity, but how do we actually get there? How do I let them know, right? So that communication is also really important. And so be open and honest about those things when the time is appropriate to your supervisor, to the people in those positions. And if you go in as an intern and you're doing the work and you're learning along the way and you're showing that you care and you're putting in the time and energy in, oftentimes you'll have one-on-one meetings depending on the field or industry, just an opportunity to connect with your supervisor in general. As you're doing those things, just kind of letting them know, hey, I'm loving the work that I'm doing. I love the team, this company. As opportunities become available, that is something I'm interested in. I'd love to talk to you more about those. If you have more information, you're able to, that's something I'm interested in learning about. And as that time progresses, building on those conversations. So letting them know in a way that's not that you would expect that because you've been an intern, and I kind of put that down here. Having that mindset and that attitude of not expecting anything. Just because I go into this internship does not mean you're going to be granted a full-time job, right? You have to prove yourself. You have to earn it, and you have to let your work speak for itself. So if you're doing all those things over time, your actions will speak alongside what you're saying in terms of you wanting to have a job or work for this company full-time, right? So keeping that in mind as well. Nothing's handed to you, and you really have to earn it. So that's another thing that I think is important and can be an awkward thing, especially if an interview process post internship is also something else to navigate, right? Because you might be interviewing with people who you've worked with or that are in your office, or maybe it was your supervisor, right? So the more you can have those conversations and be comfortable with that content, the better it will serve you when you do reach those points, if you're going through an interview process or whatever that looks like. Okay. So these are my hard hitters. These are things that I believe are important for internships, I think for professionals in general and in life. So you didn't ask for that piece, but that's what I think too. So they're beneficial when you start a job, when you're in an internship, or anything beyond an internship, full-time role, anything like that. There's 4. So this is my first one. You must provide value. When you leave that team, you want them to feel an absence, because that means that you showed up and you made a positive impact, whether that be in the work that you're doing, in the way you showed up with a positive attitude. Provide value to the team, whatever that looks like. Sometimes that looks like not doing the fun and glorious things, but doing what the team needs for you to be successful as a group, right? So you want them to kind of feel, ideally, when you leave, it's like, oh, dang, Alex left. The work that she did for us was really special and important. And now we have to fill that gap, right? So provide value. And that could be different for everyone, right? Everyone has different strengths. So whatever you bring to the table, be the best at that. Show up and provide that value to your team. And let that work speak for itself, right? The second one is this, be consistent. So obviously things happen in life and things come up, and you have to be out for a day, or things happen. Maybe you're dealing with something and you don't have the greatest energy that day, whatever that looks like. But be consistent in your work, in your attitude, in relationships. Whenever you can, control it, right? If I show up to work every day, pretty consistent, right? I would say you kind of know you can walk by my office. I'm probably going to shout out the door and ask how you're doing. And then I want to touch base on what work you're doing and things like that. You know how I'm going to show up. But if I show up every day and one day my door is just shut, I'm not in a good mood, I don't want to be bothered, and then they come in the next day, but my door is wide open and I'm like, hey, everyone, how's it going? That can be difficult for some people to navigate, because if I have something I need to talk to my supervisor about, or a student, and I don't know how they're going to show up, I have to get in the right mindset, and that causes stress then on the work that I'm doing, right? So if you can be consistent, provide valuable work, double check all of your stuff, make sure that when you do turn things in or finish a project, that you've looked at those things, that you do have a positive attitude for things you can control, and the energy that you provide to a space. And then are consistent, again, building relationships. That's really important. Some people don't, it depends on the person, right? Some people want to have those more, I guess, personal would be the word, relationships. If I have our intern walk in, I'm going to ask how her weekend was. What did you do this weekend? How are your friends? How's it going? Right? Some supervisors might not do that. It's just, hey, you're here, we're doing these things. But just be consistent. Let them know who's going to show up every day, so that you can, discuss whatever you need to discuss and then move forward. I think this one is harder to do than just say it, because life does happen and we all deal with things differently, and those things are valid, right? And things do come up. But just keeping that in mind, if you can be consistent, do it. Okay, so this third one, see a gap and fill it. Help others where you can and take initiative to get tasks done. In an internship, oftentimes there's room for collaboration. Sometimes there's not, depending on the field, the industry, office, or whatever. But chances are someone in your office could use support on something. Now, that doesn't mean go do those things before you do the work that you've been asked to do, because that should be your first goal. Here are the tasks I've been given in my role. Let me get these done and make sure that they're good. But if you have the bandwidth and the opportunity to help someone or finish another project with someone and collaborate with them, that just shows that you're a team player. And then it moves the team forward, right? So instead of someone on your team maybe not being able to finish something or get something done, if you've got your work done and you're feeling good and you can hop in, that's better for everyone. So just helping others, it gets back to the relationship piece, right? If you're building good relationships, that might help you later, right? If you're in a pinch and you're working on something and, another intern in your office is done with something and they have the opportunity to help you, maybe since you reached out and extended an arm before, maybe now they're willing to do that for you and work on something with you. So just keeping that in mind, be someone that you would want on a team, help others where you can, and take that initiative. And then again, build relationships with genuine intention. I think this is really important. So relationships and building rapport are everything. What that does in a professional relationship is it builds trust, right? So then I know I can go to someone, if I have that rapport with them, ask them for help, say, I need X, Y, and Z, ask them questions, pick their brain. So just being a decent human being in general and building that relationship is really important. But again, not to be a self-serving one. How do I help you? What can we learn from each other? And that's what builds trust, and that's what moves you forward, and is beneficial for everyone. And just being someone that people want to be around. Okay. So setting yourself apart. I think this is one of the most important things. And I think when you're trying to conceptualize this, I think that's something that everyone thinks about when you go into an internship, especially if there's multiple people doing an internship, maybe there's only one position available. It really just depends on the situation. But I think having that mindset of how do I set myself apart, whether that's from other interns or just anyone in the office, how do I still get my job done and set myself apart? And I put in here, it's not as hard as you think. And I'm going to explain to you why I think that. This is not backed in research. This is just Ashley Person's opinion. I'll say that right here. But what I have come to kind of learn through experience, through now working with different groups of students, having been a student myself, having had different full-time positions before coming into my master's program, working other part-time roles. I think there's a few key pieces here that if you do these things, you can set yourself apart. And one of them, the first one being show up on time. I know that sounds like simple, but if you're consistently showing up on time, what does that show? That shows that you care about your job, your internship. It's important to you. It's valuable. You're there on time when they asked you to be there, right? Number two, doing your job description. Right? So they will outline, here's what you're supposed to do. Here's the project you're working on. Do these things. Show up on time. Do your job. Right? Okay. Number three, I talked about this already. These are some of these things that are repetition, but I believe them wholeheartedly. Number three, have a good attitude. Again, it's not always the easiest thing. You might not want to do it, but showing up to the space, smiling, eager about whatever it's going to be, having that perspective when appropriate, right? So there might be conversations or things where it's not the time to smile and it's not, whatever, but reading the room, right? Being able to assess, how should I be acting right now? And those are the three things. If you show up, if you do your job and you show up with a good attitude and you're someone that people want to be around, you will set yourself apart. And then what happens if you do anything beyond those things? That's what sets you apart. So you showing up and doing literally what you're supposed to do and having a good attitude, believe it or not, doesn't always happen, right? I'm sure you've all worked with people, or you've had people in class who stroll in late and it's like, okay, we're all here on time, or, things like that. So thinking about situations you've seen before, be the person that you want to show up and work with. Be the person that you want to work for, right? Do those things and set yourself apart. Because not everyone is doing that. Not everyone does show up on time. Not everyone does their job. Not everyone does what is expected of them. People come in sometimes with an attitude and it's like, oh, you're actually just bringing me down today, right? And that's a bummer, right? So, granted, if different things are happening, but those things are really important and they actually go a long way. There are some things that you can learn. And if you just show up and do these things, you're going to be able to learn the other content. These things, not everyone does them. They don't. So if you can do those things and your job, you will set yourself apart. You will be different, because it's actually not the norm, unfortunately. That might feel a little cynical, but there are great people who do great work. But I think there's also just some reality to it, right? And you might end up in an internship that's highly competitive. You might be very qualified, but guess what? If there's another intern sitting there with you, they probably are too, right? So you both have those qualifications, those certifications, the degree, XYZ, but who's going to take it a step further and be a well-rounded teammate, employee, person on this team that you have to work with, right? So I think if you keep it in that mindset or that perspective, that will take you a very long way. So that was my little moment on setting yourself apart. It is doable, I promise. Okay, so I did leave time for questions. I feel like this is a topic where people have different experiences. They might want to ask about those things. So I'm here, I'm open for questions if there's anything beyond what was in the chat. And you can feel free to just come off your mic unless Alex wants to do this any other way, but I'm good with you just coming off your mic and asking questions. If it's not something you want to ask in front of the whole group, I'm also happy to stick around or connect at a later point as well.
I'm also going to jump in. I unmuted myself. Ashley, that was awesome. I hope everybody here took notes. I took notes as you were going through, because that is just, it's really valuable information, especially from someone who's done it. So please, if y'all have questions, Ashley is a great resource.
Thank you.
Hey, Ashley, my name is Jocelyn Hernandez, and I'm an upcoming junior this semester. I am actually at my internship right now. So I was just wondering how you go about asking those questions to your supervisors and asking them not just for work to do, but for things to do, for more things to learn when you're just sitting there kind of not knowing what else to do.
That's a great question. And that's part of, I think, the professional learning curve too, right? So I've actually been working with some students on this summer. So I'm glad you asked that. But it goes back to, I think, learning your supervisor, number one. And then kind of understanding the culture of your office. And then I think when you're working on those tasks, going through whatever they have assigned you, right? Working on those things, making sure those things are done out of this world. If you have that time and you're able to devote that time to it, check it again. You know what I mean? Double check your work, make sure you're good on all ends. And then I think once you do that, it's easier to have that conversation, right? So if you have to go to your supervisor, you're able to say, hey, I have really enjoyed working on these projects that you've given me. If you wanted to look at one, here's some of the stuff I've been working on in the time that we've had together. Here's what I've done. I'm open to learning other things as well. I'm here to do whatever you need me to do. But are there other topics that I think it's a good way. Something you can do is say, I'm interested in these topics as well, right? Because research during an internship is also really important. Maybe you're not physically doing something, but now you're looking into something else. So you're trying to learn more about that industry or that field or whatever it is. So opportunities for research. Are there other topics I could become more familiar with that would benefit me, in this field, or that would benefit the team, that would help serve you, right? So what topics and things can I do my own research on? I think is a great question to ask if you're needing more work to do. And then just asking, are there other ways that I can support you? I've completed these tasks. I'm happy to go over them with you, but I'm finding now as I learn more about the work I'm doing that I'm able to get these done maybe in a shorter time period than I was when I started my internship. I'm excited about learning new things, taking on new tasks. So are there opportunities available? And kind of going from that framework. I feel like when you're able to show your supervisor, instead of just going to them and saying, hey, I'm done, what else do you have for me? It's kind of like hey, we're meeting. Here's what I've worked on. I really enjoyed it. I've taken some extra time to review it, make sure it's all good. I'm still wanting to learn more about other things that have to do with our office in the field. Are there topics I can research? Do you have anything else that I can help support you with? And kind of see where that conversation takes you. Because what that might do then is hopefully you only have to have that conversation once, because you might open up their mind, oh, they're learning you too, right? So maybe they don't know how long it might take you to do something. Maybe they're trying to see what work you provide and if it's good or not, if it meets their standard or not. So once you kind of do that, it might open their mind, and then they understand, oh, okay, she's able to complete these tasks. Maybe I can challenge her with a little bit more. And what that does is that builds your experience. So if you have that conversation and they do give you more responsibility, you're building a stronger portfolio as you work in that internship. Did that answer your question? Kind of give you
It definitely did. Thank you so much.
Okay, of course. Good luck in your internship. That's so exciting.
Somebody typed in the chat, a question. So if they come across some points, concepts, tasks that they don't know how to do, how should you react and go about approaching that?
Okay, I would say initially, hopefully that interaction is happening where they're giving you an assignment and saying, here's what you're going to be working on, whether that's your supervisor to an intern, or maybe it's a group of interns, whatever that looks like. If you have the opportunity when you get the assignment immediately to say, immediately, I don't understand this, or could you provide further explanation on this. Say, I understand that you're saying XYZ. So start with the positive, right? I understand that you're asking me to do this. I just want to clarify, you want XYZ. And then if you're unsure of how to do that or where to start, maybe saying, I'm not sure exactly where to start with that. Do you have somewhere where I could start that I could help build off of? Kind of taking it in that aspect. Depending on the time frame too, you could also ask, I'm going to review this as well. I'm going to leave this meeting and I'm going to go review this. If I do have questions, is that okay if I come back with them before I get too far along on the wrong path and I'm unable to kind of come back, because that would create more work too. So again, kind of taking it on the front end. Okay, I'm going to review this. If I have questions, can I come back? I want to make sure that I start this right, so that later when I have to do it again, I don't have to come back to these steps and I can learn it from the foundation.
So, hi Ashley, this is Rishabh. I am going to join Clemson University in fall 23.
Awesome.
So, I just have one question, that a lot of times there are some times when I agree with your point that communication is very important, but then sometimes it is difficult to communicate for introverts. So it is a huge task to exactly say something or ask something. And I face this problem a lot because play the entire conversation in my head, but I end up saying something else when the point actually comes.
Right.
So what insights would you have on that?
Yes, that's a great question, right? Because everyone does have a different work style, communication style, right? Part of that is, depending on your supervisor, learning what works best. And if they do have an expectation for you to speak up, how do you kind of look inwardly to have to adjust to that? However, I would say on the flip side, as more of an introvert and not wanting to be caught in those spaces where you might not be able to gather your thoughts entirely, is kind of what it sounded like you're saying. If you're able to get ahead of the game and plan for those conversations, that could be easier too, right? So if you know a project's coming up or something happened in a meeting that maybe you're frustrated about, setting up a time with that person, and maybe it works better for you whether you communicate via email in an office, right? Reaching out and just saying, hey, I have some thoughts about XYZ topic. I would love the opportunity to sit down and talk about them. And then it's never bad to walk into a meeting or a space with notes that you've taken. And I think you can always preface that and just say, hey, I care a lot about this conversation that we're going to have. I took down some notes beforehand because I want to make sure that I communicate them to you the way that I've thought them through. So if you don't mind, I'm going to glance at them as we're talking, just to make sure that I, showcase everything I'm thinking to you the way that I want to. And then what happens is then you create a better space to enter, as opposed to being, caught off guard, which sometimes those things will happen and you've got to kind of think on your feet. But if you can control what you can, and you can set up an opportunity to speak about those things, then you can prepare beforehand to have that conversation, and go into that space maybe with your thoughts gathered a little bit more clearly. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Go Tigers, welcome. That's so exciting. Anyone else? Questions, concerns, thoughts?
That's exactly what I was going to say, Ashley. Look at you.
You'd think I was in the cruising.
Exactly. It's already been asked if people can watch it later.
Yes.
If you did come in late, I recorded it. I will have it up on our YouTube channel that's listed in the chat, if you want to review what Ashley said as well.
And I am on campus and I'm always happy to have students over. So, my contact information is there. If you have questions, if you're in an internship, if you just want to chat and connect, please reach out. I'm happy to meet with you in person, on Zoom, whatever is best for you, and just be a resource however you need. And, whatever situation you're in, hopefully I can be of some type of support if you need that. So.
If there are no more questions, I'm just going to say thank you so much, Ashley. This has been super helpful. You're getting thank yous in the chat, so that's good.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It's always fun.
And if y'all think of it later, I know I emailed everyone information about today. So if you need Ashley or need something or anything like that, please don't hesitate to shoot me an email as well. So many thankfuls.
Thank you.
Of course. Cameron, are you Jenna's GA?
Yes, I am.
I was
Okay.
so about to call out Cameron. I was like, don't leave yet.
Don't
No.
That's so fun. That's exciting. Are you loving it so far? How are you doing?
I am actually. I just got finished with training, so now I'm just shadowing now. I was gonna reach out to you after this and kind of connect with you if we could maybe sit down, talk, get
Yeah.
your experience on